Within moments, Devon Jackson's life was poised for a dramatic turn before Chicago's elite, and the billionaire Patricia Blackwell was about to commit the gravest error of her life. She seized the microphone and announced, "Attention, darlings. I have something intriguing to share." 200 pairs of eyes pivoted toward the billionaire. Politicians, business moguls, and celebrities alike paused to listen. Patricia's gaze found Devon Jackson. The young waiter clutched his tray, attempting to melt into the background. Yet there was something about him that profoundly irritated her. Perhaps it was the way he met her gaze, unflinching, devoid of the fear she so relished witnessing. Devon had always been courteous, respectful. He had never made a misstep. Yet his quiet dignity was a perpetual thorn in Patricia's racist pride. "This young man here," she stated, pointing directly at Devon, "appears to harbor artistic aspirations." All eyes pierced him like darts. Devon felt his blood run cold. "I'm quite certain he would play the piano for you all," Patricia offered, her smile radiating unadulterated malice. "After all, who wouldn't want to witness a special performance?" Her cruel laughter echoed through the hall like venom. Patricia was convinced Devon didn't play the piano. She yearned to see him stammer, plead, humiliate himself. She sought to shatter the quiet dignity that so vexed her. "Come now, darling," she purred, gesturing toward the Steinway Grand. "Show us your talent." Devon felt his legs tremble. The Steinway gleamed like an instrument of torture. 200 people awaited his public humiliation. Yet in this moment of absolute terror, an impossible turning point was about to unfold. From the shadows, a legend observed. Michael Jordan witnessed the cruelty, and he was not pleased. The legendary player rose from his armchair with an abrupt movement that made the furniture creak. His expression sent a chill down the spine of anyone nearby. "This humiliation will not transpire," he murmured, yet his voice resonated with absolute authority. Michael began to stride toward the center of the ballroom. His footsteps echoed on the marble like hammer blows. His jaw was clenched, fists balled. A few guests noticed his advance. "It's Michael Jordan! He looks furious!" Patricia, still gripping the microphone, her cruel smile plastered on her face, remained oblivious to the storm brewing behind her. Michael strode past clusters of billionaires who instinctively parted. His magnetic presence brought conversations to a halt. Glasses remained suspended midair. Even the waiters froze. "Excuse me," his deep voice cut through the air. The sheer intensity in his eyes makes people instinctively recoil. It is the same gaze that made adversaries quake on courts across the globe. Patricia finally registers the commotion. She turns and her cruel expression freezes as she sees Michael Jordan approaching with a murderous resolve. For a fleeting moment, fear flickers in her blue eyes. For the first time that evening, Patricia senses she has bitten off more than she can chew. Michael stands 10 paces from her. His expression is pure stone, his eyes blazing with indignation. Devon watches as if in slow motion, his childhood idol advancing to his defense. But it is at this precise moment of peak tension that something utterly unexpected transpires. Devon glances at the approaching Michael Jordan and slowly sets the silver tray onto a nearby table. "Mrs. Blackwell," his voice emerges calm, controlled, surprising even himself. "I accept the invitation." A shock ripples through the crowd like an electric current. Patricia blinks several times, evidently not anticipating such a reaction. She had expected fear, stammering, perhaps tears, not this serene and dignified acceptance. Michael Jordan halts abruptly 3 meters from the center of the hall, his eyes fixed on Devon. Something in the young man's demeanor makes him pause. There is a subtle yet unmistakable shift in the young man's energy. Devon strides toward the Steinway piano with measured, resolute steps. Each step echoes on the marble like a definitive declaration. The crowd follows him in absolute silence, as if on the cusp of witnessing history unfold. "Well," Patricia stammers slightly for the first time that evening. How marvelous. Everyone, let's applaud our volunteer artist." But no one applauds. The silence is so dense it could be cut with a knife. Everyone is mesmerized by the complete transformation Devon has undergone in a matter of seconds. The young waiter reaches the grand piano and places his hand delicately on its polished ebony lid. For a moment, his fingers caress the surface as if he were greeting an old friend. Patricia watches nervously, suddenly uncertain of what she had set in motion. This was not the script she had envisioned. Devon was supposed to be stammering, pleading, humbling himself, not striding with such unsettling dignity toward the most expensive instrument in her mansion. Michael Jordan crosses his arms, but his expression has shifted from indignation to intense curiosity. Something about the way Devon moves around the piano makes him think that perhaps, just perhaps, Patricia Blackwell has just made the biggest mistake of her life. Devon adjusts the piano bench with precise, practiced movements. His hands position themselves over the genuine ivory keyboard, and for the first time since arriving at the party, a faint smile graces his lips. "I hope you enjoy it," he says simply, his voice imbued with a confidence no one had perceived before. Patricia clutches the microphone in her hands, a sudden nervousness gripping her. She glances at her husband Robert, who watches with a worried expression. She looks at the guests, who are held in breathless anticipation, and then Devon places his fingers on the keys. The first chord that erupts from the Steinway grand piano is not merely music. It is pure magic transformed into sound. The notes of Debussy's Clair de Lune flow from Devon's fingertips like crystalline water, each key touched with a precision and sensitivity that envelop the entire mansion in an absolute trance. Patricia Blackwell is literally agape. The microphone slips from her trembling hands, falling to the floor with a muffled thud that echoes across the marble. She had anticipated an embarrassing debacle, perhaps a few off-key notes played out of nervousness. Never had she imagined she would witness a performance worthy of the world's foremost pianists. Michael Jordan, who had been ready to intervene in defense of the young man, now finds himself utterly mesmerized. His eyes fixate on Devon's fingers, dancing across the keys with a fluidity few professional pianists could achieve. He recognized talent when he saw it, and what he was witnessing was pure genius. Conversations ceased entirely. Champagne flutes hung suspended in midair, forgotten in hands paralyzed by the music's beauty. The wife of Chicago's mayor wiped away a tear that slipped unbidden. A multinational CEO closed his eyes, transported to some distant realm by the perfect melody. Devon is completely immersed in the music. His fingers move with a grace that seems impossible for someone in a waiter's uniform. Every note was placed exactly where it belonged, every nuance of Debussy's composition honored with absolute reverence. It was as if the piano and the young man were a single entity, breathing and singing in unison. "My God," a socialite near the entrance whispers. He's extraordinary." Patricia scans the room frantically, seeking any indication that her meticulously orchestrated humiliation might yet be salvaged. But what she sees are faces wrapped in ecstasy, individuals utterly captivated by the performance's inherent beauty. Her cruel scheme had morphed into the nightmare of her darkest imaginings. Robert Blackwell, Patricia's husband, observes the spectacle with a blend of awe for the young man's prodigious talent and profound shame at his wife's underlying intentions. He had known Patricia long enough to grasp precisely what she had been attempting to achieve, and witnessing the plan backfire so spectacularly ignited within him an uncanny sense of poetic justice. Devon seamlessly transitioned from the melancholic strains of Clair de Lune to more dynamic passages, his fingers soaring across the keys with a velocity and precision that would inspire envy in any seasoned concert pianist. The $500,000 grand piano had never resonated with such magnificence, as if it had at last encountered the virtuoso it truly deserved. Michael Jordan stealthily approached, unwilling to miss a single note of the extraordinary performance. He had witnessed greatness manifest in myriad forms, on basketball courts, within the realm of business, and in the arena of leadership. Yet he had rarely encountered anything as intrinsically pure and potent as what Devon was conjuring forth at this very instant. The music swelled to its emotional crescendo, and several individuals in the audience found tears silently tracing paths down their cheeks, entirely oblivious to their own display of emotion. These were not tears of sorrow, but rather of profound recognition for something transcendent, something that resonated with the human soul in a way that mere words could never articulate. Patricia felt herself diminishing with every passing moment, as she watched her attempted humiliation transmute into the grandest triumph her mansion had ever borne witness to. Each note Devon played felt like a stinging rebuke to her ego, each perfect chord an undeniable testament to how egregiously she had misjudged the entire situation. As Devon neared the culmination of the piece, the silence in the hall became so profound that even the collective breathing seemed to synchronize. 200 individuals were utterly immersed in the enchantment, being conjured by a young black waiter on a piano worth more than many of their homes combined. And then, with a delicate touch that sent hearts soaring, Devon rendered the final notes of Clair de Lune. The sound wafted through the air like a melancholic farewell, reverberating off the marble walls before dissolving into absolute stillness. For 5 full seconds, no one dared to breathe. No one stirred. It was as if the entire mansion had fallen under an unbreakable spell. And then a lone figure began to applaud. It was Michael Jordan. The single clap of his hands echoed through the hall like a cannon shot. Within seconds, the ensuing explosion of applause was deafening. 200 members of Chicago's elite rose in a standing ovation, shouting, "Bravo!" with an intensity of emotion they rarely displayed in public. Devon remained seated at the piano bench, his hands still hovering over the keys, as if in disbelief at what had just transpired. Beads of perspiration glistened on his forehead, catching the chandelier's light. Yet his face radiated a peace he hadn't known in years. Patricia Blackwell stood transfixed in the middle of the hall, her face ashen. The thunderous applause felt like daggers to her wounded pride. Each resounding "Bravo!" from the multitude underscored her humiliating defeat. Slowly, Devon rose from the piano bench. The applause persisted, but he gently raised a hand, and such was the respect he had commanded that the hall gradually fell silent. He walked to where Patricia's microphone had fallen and picked it up delicately. "Thank you," his voice, clear and imbued with emotion, resonated through the mansion's sound system. "Thank you so much for this opportunity." He looked directly at Patricia, but there was no rancor in his eyes, only a serene dignity that made her feel even smaller. "I know many of you must be wondering how a humble waiter learned to play like this," Devon continued, his voice gaining strength with each word. "And I believe you deserve to know the truth." The silence that now descended upon the hall was different. It was no longer merely an expectation of entertainment, but genuine respect for someone who had just unveiled an extraordinary talent. "My name is Devon Jackson. I am 23 years old and I have loved music since an early age," he began, his voice thick with suppressed emotion. "When I was 10 years old, my parents noticed I would spend hours glued to the radio, attempting to mimic the melodies I heard. They didn't have much money, but both worked double shifts for months to afford piano lessons for me." A few individuals in the audience exchanged emotional glances. The mayor's wife surreptitiously dabbed at another tear. "For 3 years, I studied with teacher Margaret, an elderly woman who taught at our neighborhood community center," Devon continued, his smile, though tinged with sadness, brimming with gratitude. "She taught me not merely the techniques, but showed me that music is the language of the soul. That no matter your origin, if you have music in your heart, you can give it voice." Michael Jordan listens to every word with rapt attention, his eyes riveted on the young man, who is revealing himself to be far more than he initially appeared. "But when I was 13, Devon's voice trembles slightly, "my father had an accident at work. He didn't survive. And suddenly my mother found herself alone with 3 children to raise." The silence in the hall is now reverent. Patricia feels an inexplicable lump in her throat. "I had to abandon my piano lessons to work after school. I delivered newspapers, washed cars, did anything to help Mom pay the bills. My dream of becoming a pianist became a luxury we couldn't afford." He pauses, looking at his own hands. "But I never stopped practicing. In neighborhood churches, when no one was looking. On disused pianos in empty schools. Anywhere I could find a keyboard, I practiced. Because music never abandoned me, even when I had to abandon it." Robert Blackwell feels a profound shame welling up within him as he looks at his wife, who remains as still as a statue. "Today I work 3 different jobs," Devon reveals, his voice clear and proud. A waiter, a store clerk during the day, and I wash dishes in a restaurant in the pre-dawn hours. Also, my younger sister can continue her studies so she can have the opportunities I never had. The emotion in the hall is palpable. Several people discreetly dab their eyes. You asked me how a mere waiter learned to play the piano, Devon says, looking directly at Patricia. The answer is because music knows no social class. Talent needs no gilded cradle. And dreams don't die just because you have to hold them in your heart for a while. The ensuing silence is broken by slow, deliberate applause. Michael Jordan is applauding again, but this time it's not merely for his musical talent. It's for the character, the dignity, the resilience of a young man who transformed an attempted humiliation into the most inspiring revelation that Hall had ever witnessed. And then, the man Devon had idolized since childhood rises and walks toward him with renewed determination. The entire hall seems suspended in time as Michael Jordan approaches. His footsteps echo on the marble like the beats of a colossal heart. Every movement calculated, powerful, magnetic. Devon still stood by the piano, gasping for breath, tears drying on his face as the applause finally began to subside. Michael extended his hand for the microphone. Devon surrendered it with reverence, his hands trembling as they brushed against those of the man who had always been his greatest hero. Allow me to properly introduce myself. Michael's voice, a deep resonance, cut through the silence like distant thunder as he spoke into the microphone. My name is Michael Jordan. The ripple of murmurs that coursed through the multitude was superfluous. Everyone knew precisely who he was. Yet there was an undeniable gravitas in his self-introduction that made every individual in that hall realize they were about to bear witness to something historic. And I have just witnessed something that will be etched into my soul forever, he continued, placing a hand on Devon's shoulder with a paternal gentleness that made the young man tremble. Not merely a musical performance that moved my heart, but a lesson in human dignity that all of us desperately needed to learn. Patricia Blackwell felt the ground give way beneath her feet, her complexion drained of color, turning ashen. She knew the tempest was brewing, and she was squarely in the eye of the hurricane. Michael turned to face the entire audience. His stance was that of a gladiator entering the arena, yet his words carried the sagacity of a king. You know, I have spent my entire life disproving those who doubted me. His voice intensified, each word piercing the air like a spear. In school, they told me I was too clumsy. In college, that I would never be a professional. In the NBA draft, I was chosen only third because two entire teams thought I wasn't good enough. He paused, a hiatus that stretched into what felt like an eternity. The ensuing silence was so profound one could almost hear the rush of their own blood through their veins. And in each of those instances, there was invariably someone like. His gaze bore into Patricia like daggers, like certain individuals present who presumed to gauge a human being's worth by superficial appearances. Patricia struggled to maintain her composure, yet her hands trembled like aspen leaves in a gale. Beads of perspiration trickled down her forehead, despite the mansion's frigid air conditioning. Devon Jackson reminded me today of a fundamental truth our hypocritical society desperately attempts to obscure. Michael continued, his voice morphing into a controlled roar. That true talent does not arrive enshrined in gilded wrapping. That greatness can reside in waiting tables, washing dishes, or sweeping streets. Spontaneous applause begins to ripple through the crowd like waves crashing on the shore. Yet more significantly, Michael raises his voice above the din of applause, Devon showed me that true nobility lies in how we react when someone attempts to crush us. He could have fled. He could have hidden. He could have begged for mercy. His voice now reverberates like a sermon in a cathedral. Instead, he stood tall and let his light shine so brightly it blinded all prejudice in this hall. The crowd erupts in applause, but Michael raises his hand like a maestro conducting his orchestra. Devon, he turns to the young man, who watches him with eyes shimmering with unshed tears. Your talent is undeniable, but your character is even more remarkable. And I want everyone here to know that as of tonight, Devon Jackson has my total, complete, and unwavering admiration. The emotion in Michael's voice causes several people in the audience to discreetly wipe their eyes. "But I won't merely admire from afar," he announces, his voice imbued with a determination that has built an empire. "Devon, if you will grant me this honor, I want to help you achieve every dream you hold in your heart. Your musical studies, your compositions, your performances, all of it will have my complete backing." Devon feels tears welling up in his eyes. His throat constricts completely. Words refuse to emerge, but his heart cries out in gratitude. "I want to open every door that needs to be opened," Michael continues, his voice now imbued with genuine emotion. "I want to ensure your talent receives every opportunity it has always deserved, but which life attempted to steal from you." The entire hall is captivated. Some weep openly. Others hold their breath as if witnessing a miracle. But then Michael turns back to the audience. His expression transforms entirely. His eyes turn to pure ice. His jaw clenches like steel. "And now I wish to address anyone in this hall who still believes they can judge someone's worth by the color of their skin, their origin, or the work they perform." His voice cuts through the air like a guillotine. "I hope Devon's performance has served as a slap in the face regarding how terribly, how pathetically wrong you can be." The silence is so absolute it seems to suck the oxygen from the room. No one dares even blink. Racism is not merely hatred screamed in the streets, Michael continues relentlessly. It is also the silent arrogance of assuming you can predict someone's capabilities based on idiotic prejudices. It is cruelty disguised as amusement. It is the cowardice of using power to humiliate those you believe cannot retaliate. His eyes meet Patricia's, who now trembles like a frightened child. It is the moral decay of turning another person's dignity into your personal entertainment. Patricia feels the world spinning around her. Her legs can scarcely support her. Her silk dress clings to her sweaty body. "But today," Michael concludes, his voice returning to a softer tone, yet still devastatingly powerful, "the cowardly attempt at humiliation has transformed into the greatest celebration of talent this mansion has ever witnessed." He pauses, a silence that seems to stretch for centuries. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is divine justice in its purest and most beautiful form. The applause that now erupts makes the walls tremble. They are not merely claps. They are shouts of approval, of catharsis, of justice finally being served. But Michael is not yet finished. He turns to Patricia with a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. It is the smile of a predator who has cornered its prey. "Now," he says into the microphone, every word dripping with irony, "I believe our generous hostess would like to share some thoughts on this unforgettable evening she has provided for all of us." The tension in the air is so thick it could be cut with a knife. Patricia is cornered. 200 pairs of eyes watch her. There is no escape. The fall is about to be even more devastating than the ascent. The silence in the hall is so dense it seems to possess its own weight. Michael Jordan holds the microphone as if it were a sword of justice, his eyes fixed on Patricia Blackwell with an intensity that makes the air thrum with tension. 200 of Chicago's most powerful individuals observe, and each one can feel that they are about to witness something historic. Patricia felt as though the Italian marble floor of her own mansion was giving way beneath her feet. Her hands, which had signed billion-dollar contracts without a tremor, now trembled uncontrollably. The haute couture gown that cost more than Devon's annual salary clung to her back, plastered by the cold sweat of fear. "Patricia," Michael's voice reverberated through the hall like distant thunder, laden with an authority that transcended wealth or social standing. "I believe we would all like to hear your words regarding what we have just witnessed." He extended the microphone towards her, and the gesture seemed to unfold in slow motion. The metal and foam object appeared to weigh 1,000 kilograms as she watched it, knowing that taking that microphone would be akin to signing her own public humiliation warrant. The murmurs ceased entirely. The only audible sound was the distant ticking of the $2 million Swiss clock on the wall, each second stretching into an eternity. Patricia could hear her own heart pounding so fiercely that she was certain everyone in the hall could hear it as well. She began, but her voice came out as a broken whisper that barely carried through the microphone. Devon remained by the piano, observing the scene with a serene expression that brutally contrasted with the visible panic in Patricia's eyes. He showed no satisfaction at her suffering, only a calm that emanated from those who truly understood the value of dignity. "I don't quite know what to say," Patricia admitted, and for the first time in decades, she was being entirely honest in public. Robert Blackwell watched his wife from a distance, his fists clenched in a mixture of anger and shame. He had seen Patricia destroy reputations at elegant dinners, crush the dreams of the less fortunate as if it were a game, and now she was tasting her own venom. Part of him felt pity. The greater part felt she deserved every second of this agony. "Perhaps," Michael suggested with a cordiality that everyone recognized as feigned, "you could start by explaining precisely what you intended when you invited Devon to play the piano." The question cut through the air like a sharpened blade. Patricia knew that everyone in the hall already knew the answer, but hearing her being forced to admit her cruel motives aloud would be the ultimate humiliation. The hall remained in a deathly silence. Every breath is distinctly audible. Every rustle of silk gown sounds like crinkling paper. The crystals of the $5 million chandelier seem to sway imperceptibly with the tension in the air. When Devon told me he played the piano," she attempts to lie, but her voice quivers so uncontrollably that the words sound like extorted admissions. "I just thought it would be interesting to hear." The lie lingers in the air like poisonous fumes. Everyone in the ballroom knows she's lying, but hearing the falsehood uttered aloud infuses an additional layer of outrage into the situation. "Interesting," Michael repeats the word slowly, relishing each syllable as a pronouncement of judgment. "It's a rather inventive word to describe what we all have just borne witness to." A murmur of indignation sweeps through the assembly like a tide. The senator's wife shakes her head in palpable disapproval. The CEO of Chicago's largest tech company whispers something to his wife, clearly conferring about the mortifying situation. "Excuse me, Mrs. Blackwell." Devon's calm voice pierces the tension like a soft zephyr, yet possesses a steadfastness that compels everyone to turn towards him. "I need to clarify something important." Patricia gazes at him with wide, startled eyes, like a deer caught in headlights. She knows Devon is about to dismantle her narrative, but she can do nothing to stop him. "I never told you I played the piano." Devon's words descend upon the ballroom like a veritable atomic bomb. "In fact, I never told anyone at this party." The silence that follows is deafening. Indignant whispers begin to detonate throughout the throng like firecrackers. Patricia has been caught in an unabashed falsehood, and now there is nowhere left to run, no longer any refuge behind her wealth or status. There must have been a misapprehension," she stammers, but even she knows how utterly pathetic she sounds. "There was no misapprehension whatsoever." Devon continues, his voice maintaining the same respectful composure, but now imbued with a moral authority that quells any bid for interruption. "The question everyone here should be asking is, if I never said I played the piano, how did you know, madam?" The question reverberates through the ballroom like a cannon shot. All conversations cease instantaneously. 200 pairs of eyes pivot towards Patricia, awaiting an answer that everyone knows she cannot provide without implicating herself even further. Patricia gapes repeatedly, gasping like a fish out of water. Her hands tremble so violently that she nearly drops the microphone. Beads of sweat begin to trickle down her forehead, marring her $1,000 makeup. I don't." She attempts to form a coherent sentence, but her words jumble in her throat like a scattered jigsaw puzzle. "The truth," Michael Jordan interjects, his voice cutting through the air like a guillotine, "is that you didn't know. You simply singled out Devon for public humiliation, expecting him to falter and thereby provide cruel entertainment for your guests." The blunt accusation causes Patricia to physically recoil, as if she'd taken a gut punch. She frantically scans the room, searching for a friendly face, an ally who might extricate her from this public humiliation. But what she finds are countenances utterly transformed. Individuals who, mere minutes ago, had smiled at her now regard her with a concoction of contempt, disappointment, and even outright revulsion. The daughter of an oil magnate whispers to her mother with palpable indignation, "Mother, what sort of person inflicts such treatment upon an employee? That's monstrous." The mayor of Chicago murmurs to his aide, "Make a mental note. Never again accept invitations from this woman. This conduct is utterly unacceptable." The wife of the foremost entrepreneur in the food industry shakes her head in profound disgust. 20 years I've known this woman, and I've never truly witnessed her genuine character until this very day. What a contemptible creature. Even the waitstaff circulating discreetly through the hall exchange silent glances of knowing vindication. They know precisely what Patricia intended to inflict upon Devon, having witnessed her perpetrate similar acts against other employees on numerous prior occasions. Their discreet smiles speak volumes. Robert finally approaches, his gait slow and ponderous, akin to a man walking to his own funeral. His shoulders are stooped under the immense weight of accumulated shame. "Patricia," his voice is hushed, yet imbued with decades of mortification. "You must cease this. Apologize at once." The suggestion from her own husband is the ultimate thrust of the dagger into what remains of her pride. Patricia Blackwell, who had forged a real estate empire by ruthlessly crushing adversaries without ever betraying a flicker of remorse, is now being forsaken even by her own spouse. She attempts to speak, but her voice emerges as a pathetic whimper. Michael Jordan exhibits no mercy. He remains as still as a statue of justice, watching the woman who moments before had seemed so powerful completely unravel before everyone. "We are awaiting an explanation," he states simply, and those 6 words carry the weight of a divine tribunal. The silence stretches out like Chinese water torture. Every passing second without Patricia speaking exponentially heightens her humiliation. She can feel the eyes of 200 people burning into her skin, can practically hear their thoughts echoing through the hall. I apologize," Patricia finally manages to stammer, each word seemingly wrenched from her throat with rusty pliers. But Michael Jordan is not satisfied with a hollow apology. He has witnessed too many powerful individuals attempt to shirk responsibilities with facile excuses. Apologies for what, precisely? Be specific. The question is a final thrust. Patricia will have to delineate her cruel motives, will have to publicly concede that she attempted to humiliate Devon simply because she could, merely because he was impoverished and she was affluent. I didn't intend to," she tries to evade, but her words become jumbled like a poorly shuffled deck of cards. "I mean, I thought it would be amusing." The word amusing reverberates through the hall like a confession of pure sociopathy. Muted laughter and indignant murmurs begin to circulate through the crowd like a spreading wildfire. The very elite who once reveled in Patricia's social cruelties now mock her. "Amusing," Michael reiterates with a tone that makes Patricia physically flinch, as if she had been struck. "So humiliating a young working man in public is your notion of amusement. Is that what you deem appropriate entertainment for a gala?" Patricia is perspiring so profusely that her immaculate makeup begins to stream in rivulets down her face. Her hands tremble so violently that the microphone vibrates, creating an unpleasant feedback loop that causes several people to wince uncomfortably. I wasn't aware he was so talented," she concedes, each word being extracted from her as if a confession coerced under medieval torture. "Ah," the cutting voice comes from the mayor's wife, cold as fractured ice. "So if he hadn't been talented, it would have been acceptable to humiliate him? Is that what you are asserting?" The question lands like a direct punch to the gut. Patricia repeatedly opens and closes her mouth, clearly devoid of a retort. She has just publicly admitted that her actions were purely motivated by classist cruelty and systemic racism. "Answer the question, Patricia," Robert whispers, yet loud enough for several guests to overhear. "Everyone is waiting." Devon draws near solicitously, and his proximity makes Patricia feel even smaller, even more exposed. "Ms. Blackwell, are you quite well? Would you care to be seated? May I ask someone to bring you some water?" His kindness is like salt in an open wound. Patricia is being treated with compassion and respect by the very person she publicly tried to destroy. and this intensifies her shame to an immeasurable degree. She cannot bring herself to meet his gaze. No, I... I need to... Her words emerge garbled, disjointed, as if her cognitive faculties had short-circuited under the immense weight of utter public humiliation. A businessman in the crowd whispers to his wife, "I have never witnessed such a powerful individual unravel so completely in public. It is almost agonizing to behold." A socialite retorts, "Serves her right. Individuals such as she believe they can act with impunity simply because of their wealth. It is high time she learned that there are repercussions." The owner of a hotel chain comments to his partner, "This will be in all the society papers tomorrow. Her reputation is irrevocably tarnished." Michael Jordan observes everything with a grim satisfaction. Justice is unfolding, the lesson is being imparted, but he also feels a pang of pity. Not pity for Patricia specifically, but for the grim necessity of publicly dismantling an individual to safeguard an innocent youth. "I suppose..." Patricia attempts to articulate once more, but her voice is so faint it is barely audible, even with the amplification of the microphone. "Speak up," someone shouts from the back of the hall. "We all want to hear." Patricia virtually thrusts the microphone back into Michael's grasp, as if the device were searing hot. She retreats swiftly, attempting to cower behind Robert, but her husband is palpably uneasy, deliberately maintaining his distance from her. "No," Robert states, his voice carrying clearly to all present. "You engineered this predicament, Patricia. Conclude what you initiated." The public repudiation by her own husband delivers the coup de grace. Patricia emits an audible sob, her social facade utterly shattered, like shards of glass upon the floor. The silence that now descends upon the hall is distinct from any that preceded it. It's neither anticipation nor admiration, but the kind of fraught, uneasy quiet that descends after everyone has witnessed a complete and devastating human collapse. Several people in the crowd exchange significant looks. All present are aware they have just borne witness not merely to an extraordinary musical performance, but also to the public downfall of one of Chicago's most feared and powerful women. Michael clutches the microphone, watching Patricia wilt like a child caught doing something terrible. He senses that justice has been served, but also recognizes that it's time to bring this spectacle to a close before it devolves into something even more cruel than it already is. But before he can speak again, something extraordinary transpires. Devon advances calmly and gracefully, extending his hand to request the microphone back. Michael relinquishes it, intrigued as to what the young man intends to do at this crucial juncture. Devon holds the microphone for a moment, surveying the room filled with expectant faces. Michael Jordan watches him with growing curiosity and respect, and then Devon does something no one expected. Something that transmutes this moment of justice into something even more potent. He demonstrates a magnanimity that leaves everyone in the room utterly speechless. The young man looks directly at Patricia, who still tries to conceal herself behind Robert, trembling like a leaf in the wind. His next words will be the true climax of this extraordinary night, the moment that will transform humiliation into redemption, hatred into forgiveness, and cruelty into compassion. The entire room collectively holds its breath, 200 pairs of lungs filling with air simultaneously, waiting to see what will emanate from the mouth of this extraordinary young man who has already astonished them in so many ways tonight. The tension is so acute it feels as though the air might shatter like glass. This is the moment that will define not only the destinies of Devon and Patricia, but the very essence of this night that no one will ever forget. He looks directly at Patricia, who is still cowering behind her husband like a shamed child, and his face displays neither anger nor vengeance, only a wisdom that seems far beyond his 23 years. "Mrs. Blackwell," his voice echoes clear and compassionate through the hall. "I accept your apology." The simple words cause a seismic impact on the crowd. Whispers of surprise ripple through the hall. No one had anticipated this response, especially not after the humiliation Patricia had attempted to inflict upon him. Patricia slowly raises her gaze, her expression a blend of relief and bewilderment. She cannot fathom how someone she had sought to utterly dismantle could exhibit such remarkable grace. Beyond that, Devon continues, his voice gaining in strength and resolve, I want everyone here to understand that I harbor no resentment in my heart. Not for you, madam, nor for anyone. Michael Jordan observes the young man with growing admiration. In over 6 decades of life, he had rarely witnessed such magnanimity of spirit, particularly emanating from someone so young who had just been publicly assailed. Do you know why? Devon asked rhetorically, his gaze sweeping across the throng. Because hatred is too ponderous a burden to bear. Resentment is a poison that inflicts greater harm upon the one who harbors it than upon the one who might deserve it. He allows a pause, letting his words reverberate through the mansion in profound silence. My mother taught me that true strength lies not in retaliation when one is attacked, but in maintaining the purity of one's heart, even when others attempt to sully it with their own pain. Devon continues, his voice imbued with heartfelt sincerity. Tears began to well up in the eyes of several individuals in the audience. The mayor's wife discreetly dabbed at her face. Even some of the most stoic men present felt a tightening in their throats. Madam Blackwell tried to humiliate me today, Devon admits with brutal candor. I will not feign that this did not occur. But instead of diminishing my spirit, this experience served to remind me of my true self. Patricia listens to every word with an expression of mounting contrition. The tears she had managed to hold back began to course down her face, streaking some of her expensive makeup. I am the son of a woman who works 16 hours a day to ensure our family's dignity, Devon declares with pride. I am the brother of a girl who sees me as a hero, even when I return home grimy from toiling at 3 different jobs. His voice becomes more potent, more fervent. I am a young black man who has learned that talent knows no color, that dreams are not bound by a dress, and that true dignity cannot be bought with wealth, he continues, his presence on the stage now utterly commanding. And paramount above all else, Devon looks directly at Patricia. I am someone who believes that people can transform, can evolve, can become better versions of themselves than they were yesterday. The applause commences tentatively, initiated by a solitary clap or two, then ripples outwards like a burgeoning tide, culminating in a thunderous, ear-splitting ovation that persists for nearly 2 full minutes. Michael Jordan applauds robustly, his countenance radiating an almost paternal pride, as if Devon were his own progeny. Throughout his illustrious career, he had witnessed greatness in myriad manifestations, yet seldom had he encountered anything as unadulterated and potent as the profound display of character he had just borne witness to. As the tumultuous applause finally recedes, Devon approaches Patricia, who remains transfixed, almost overwhelmed by the unexpected magnanimity being bestowed upon her. Madam Blackwell, he intones gently, extending a hand towards her. I trust we can commence anew. Patricia gazes at the outstretched hand for several seconds, as if she cannot quite fathom that genuine forgiveness is being offered by someone she had publicly attempted to dismantle. Slowly, hesitantly, she extends her own hand and clasps it briefly. Thank you, she whispers, her voice choked with emotion. Thank you for showing me how a truly strong person conducts themselves. The transformation in the ballroom is palpable. What began as a cruel attempt at humiliation had transformed into a lesson in forgiveness, dignity, and strength of character that none present would ever forget. But Michael Jordan was not yet finished with the evening's surprises. Michael Jordan approaches Devon and Patricia, who still stood in close proximity to each other after the moment of reconciliation. His imposing presence silences the ballroom once more, all curious as to what the legendary athlete would do next. Devon, Michael states, placing a hand on the young man's shoulder, you will not be working as a waiter any longer tonight. The words resonate through the ballroom with an authority that brooked no argument. Patricia looks up in surprise, not expecting the situation to take such a turn. Furthermore, Michael continues, looking directly at Patricia, I believe our hostess agrees that you have already demonstrated talents far superior to those required for serving drinks. Patricia swallows hard, comprehending perfectly what was being suggested. She looks at Devon, then at Michael, then at the 200 guests who were observing her every move. Of course, she manages to utter, her voice still trembling but more controlled. Devon, you are relieved of your duties tonight, and you may stay on as our special guest if you wish. Devon looks at her with genuine surprise. Even after all that had transpired, he still had not expected this kind of treatment. More than that, Patricia continues, clearly attempting to regain some semblance of dignity, you no longer need to work for our catering company. We consider your talent far superior to such roles. Robert approaches his wife, placing a hand on her back in silent support. He too perceived this to be a moment of redemption for both of them. In fact, Robert speaks for the first time that evening. Patricia and I would like to discuss some opportunities that might assist you in developing your musical talent. Michael Jordan smiles approvingly. He is witnessing precisely the kind of transformation he had hoped to instigate with his intervention. That is exceedingly kind of you all, Devon responds with genuine humility. But I don't require charity. I simply need equitable opportunities. And that is precisely what we will ensure you receive, Michael declares with conviction. The atmosphere in the hall had utterly transformed. What began as an exclusive elite soiree had morphed into a celebration of talent, redemption, and second chances. People who had previously barely acknowledged the event staff now greeted Devon with deference. The mayor's wife approached the small cluster. Devon, I would be honored to invite you to perform at the city's upcoming charitable gala, she says with a warm smile. It would be an honor to have you as our featured performer. Other guests began to draw near, proffering opportunities, forging connections, treating Devon no longer as a server, but as the extraordinary talent he truly is. Patricia observes everything with a blend of remorse and fascination. She is witnessing in real time how her actions nearly obliterated something precious, and how Michael Jordan's intervention in Devon's magnanimity transformed her attempted cruelty into a celebration of humanity. Devon, she approaches tentatively, I know I have no right to ask this, but would you consider playing one more song before departing? This time not as an employee, but as our esteemed guest? Devon looks at her with surprise, then at Michael, who nods encouragingly. It would be my distinct pleasure, Devon responds with a genuine smile. As he walks back to the piano, this time not as a server compelled to entertain, but as a revered artist gracing an audience that had come to appreciate him, the evening's metamorphosis is complete. But Michael Jordan has further plans for the burgeoning talent. After Devon played a second piece, a poignant rendition of Amazing Grace that once again moved the entire audience to tears, Michael Jordan approached him with a warm smile that contrasted sharply with the gravity he had maintained throughout his confrontation with Patricia. Devon, it has been an extraordinary evening, Michael says, placing a hand on the young man's shoulder. But now I think you deserve to rest and assimilate all that has transpired. Devon agrees, still somewhat dazed by the complete turnaround his life had taken in a matter of hours. From a humiliated waiter to a celebrated artist, it all feels too surreal to be true. My private driver is waiting outside, Michael continues. Would you like him to take you home? I imagine you've had enough excitement for one evening. The offer catches Devon off guard. He had never ridden in a private car, much less that of a legend like Michael Jordan. Mr. Jordan, I can't accept that, Devon humbly protests. The bus suits me perfectly well. Michael chuckles softly, a genuine laugh that reveals the more human side of the legend. Devon, you've just given us one of the greatest lessons in dignity and character I've ever witnessed, he says firmly. To let you go home by bus after the evening you've provided for all of us would be nothing short of an insult. Patricia, who has been observing the conversation from a respectful distance, approaches hesitantly. Michael is right, she says, her voice still laden with emotion. After everything that's happened, it's the least we can do. Devon looks around and notices that several guests are watching, all with expressions of approval and respect. He understands that to refuse such kindness at this moment would be tantamount to rejecting the transformation they had all just witnessed. All right, he accepts graciously. It would be an honor. Michael smiles broadly and signals to someone near the entrance. In a few minutes, a distinguished man in a black suit approaches. James, this is Devon Jackson, Michael introduces. I'd like you to take him home with all the care and respect you would afford a member of my own family. James, the driver, bows respectfully. It will be my pleasure, Mr. Jordan. Mr. Jackson, he addresses Devon. The car is ready whenever you are. As they walk towards the exit, Michael pulls Devon aside for a more private conversation. Listen, Devon, his voice becomes more serious, more intimate. What happened here tonight was just the beginning. You possess a talent the world needs to hear, and I intend to ensure that happens. Devon feels a shiver run down his spine. He still can't quite believe he's having this conversation with Michael Jordan. Tomorrow afternoon, if you don't mind, I'd like to visit you and your family, Michael continues. I want to meet your mother. I want to gain a better understanding of your situation, and I want to discuss some concrete opportunities I can offer. Tears of gratitude welled up in Devon's eyes. Mr. Jordan, I don't know what to say, he stammered, overcome with emotion. There's no need for words now, Michael replied with a paternal smile. Simply provide me with your address and ready your family for a special visit tomorrow. Devon meticulously jotted down his address on a slip of paper Michael extended to him, his hands quivering slightly from the intensity of the moment. And Devon, Michael appended as they approached the mansion's threshold, what you have evinced here tonight, this magnanimity of spirit, this unfeigned forgiveness, it is truly exceptional. More so than any prodigious musical aptitude. Never relinquish it. As Devon settled into the private vehicle, an immaculate black Mercedes-Benz, and it began its stately retreat from the mansion towards his modest neighborhood, he glanced through the rear window to behold Michael Jordan still standing, sentinel at the entrance, waving as though bidding adieu to an old compatriot. Devon Jackson's life had just been irrevocably altered, yet he remained utterly unaware of the true depth of this impending transformation. The following afternoon, the subtle fragrance of sautéed garlic and freshly steamed rice permeated the modest Jackson household, as Elena Washington meticulously prepared lunch with the unwavering dedication of one who, despite her evident fatigue, consistently imbued every meal with heartfelt affection. Devon was in the kitchen, diligently peeling potatoes alongside his mother. Even as he recounted the same tale for the 10th iteration, his exhilaration showed no signs of abating. Mother, I understand it seems improbable, he declared, a grin so wide it almost strained his features. But it was absolutely real. Michael Jordan genuinely stated he would be visiting us today, right here, in our very home. Elena emitted a brief chuckle, shaking her head, yet her eyes betrayed a more intricate tapestry of emotions. A blend of profound pride, judicious caution, and inherent skepticism. She was intimately acquainted with life's vagaries. Hope, she knew, was a fragile ember the world was ever eager to snuff out. My son, she murmured gently, you experienced an exceedingly emotional evening. Occasionally our minds can conjure deceptions when we navigate moments of such profound intensity. Devon was poised to retort when a shrill voice emanated from the hallway. Mommy! Devon's prattling on about that famous athlete again. It was Layla Jackson, age 13, her hair gathered in a disheveled bun and clad in an oversized school t-shirt. She materialized at the kitchen doorway, clutching a sketchbook. Her eyes gleamed, a fascinating dichotomy of characteristic sibling, taunting and unfeigned admiration. It's not that famous player, Layla, Devon retorted, a scowl on his face. It is the Michael Jordan, the greatest of all time, and he said he would come today. Truly. Layla rolled her eyes only to smile moments later. All right, all right. When he actually shows up on our driveway, then I'll believe it, she teased, before flinging herself onto the living room sofa and reopening her notebook. It was at that very moment that the soft squeal of tires braking in front of the house became audible. 3 pairs of eyes instinctively pivoted toward the front window. Outside, a gleaming black Mercedes-Benz pulled up with an elegance that sharply contrasted with the neighborhood's humble setting. Elena dropped the knife, her hands automatically reaching for her apron to wipe them. My God, she whispered, her voice caught in her throat. Devon, is it really him? Before anyone could react, Devon dashed to the door and opened it with trembling hands. Outside, Michael Jordan was traversing the small front yard with unhurried steps. He wore dark jeans, a light blue dress shirt with its sleeves rolled up, and a pair of sneakers that appeared more valuable than the neighbor's car. His presence was serene, yet commanding, as if he inherently belonged wherever he set foot. "Mr. Jordan!" Devon exclaimed, overwhelmed with emotion. "I scarcely believed you would truly come." Michael smiled, extending his hand for a firm handshake. "I always keep my promises, Devon, and I was eager to meet the woman who raised such an extraordinary young man." Elena appeared at the doorway, still adjusting her hair. For a moment she seemed unsure what to do with her hands. "Mrs. Washington," Michael approached her with genuine respect, extending his hand. "It's an honor to meet you." "Mr. Jordan, our home is very humble. We don't have anything special to offer," she stammered, visibly flustered. "Madam, the only special thing I need here is already present," he replied, casting a warm glance at Devon. "A family that has raised someone with such immense talent and dignity has no need to apologize for anything." Layla peered from behind the curtain, her eyes wide with wonder. Only when Michael had stepped inside the house did she timidly emerge. "Hi, I'm Layla, Devon's sister," she mumbled, half hidden behind the doorframe. Michael smiled kindly and crouched down slightly to speak with her at eye level. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Layla. Your brother has spoken of you. He mentioned how diligently he works so you can pursue your studies and achieve your dreams." Layla looked at Devon in surprise and he colored slightly. With a shy smile, she merely nodded before retreating back into the room. Once settled in the unpretentious living room, Michael eased himself onto the worn sofa. He surveyed the room, taking in the details, the time-worn family photographs in their frames, Layla's drawings adorning the wall, the dust-laden school trophies on a shelf. Every item whispered a silent narrative of struggle, affection, and dignity. "Devon shared with me the story of your father," he began, addressing Elena with a respectful tone, "about the sacrifices he made and how you raised them both single-handedly. That is no trivial matter." Elena's gaze dropped, overcome with emotion. "I merely did what any mother would," she responded with unadorned simplicity. "With the greatest respect, ma'am, you did not. You accomplished more than most people could ever hope to. You raised a son who, when publicly humiliated before an audience of 200, responded with music, unwavering character, and forgiveness. Such virtues are instilled at home." A tearful smile graced Elena's lips. From the hallway, Layla observed the scene in quiet contemplation, clutching her notebook tightly to her chest. Michael then shifted to a more forthright tone. "I am here today with a proposition," he stated. "I wish to fully finance Devon's musical education, conservatory tuition, private instruction, instruments, everything." Devon's eyes widened in disbelief. Elena's hands flew to her mouth. "Beyond that," Michael pressed on, "I want to ensure your financial stability, allowing Devon to fully immerse himself in his musical pursuits. He will no longer need to juggle 3 jobs." Elena burst into open tears. "Mr. Jordan, we simply cannot accept charity." "This is not charity," Michael interjected with resolute conviction. "It is an investment in exceptional talent, in profound values, and in a family that undeniably merits this opportunity." Devon knelt beside his mother and held her hands. "Mother, this is our opportunity. It's everything we've ever envisioned." Her gaze shifted from her son to Michael and finally settled on Layla, who was observing the scene with glistening eyes. It was as if she could sense her late husband's silent, approving presence in the room. "Very well," she conceded, her voice thick with emotion. "But Devon must promise me he will never forget his origins." "I shall never forget, Mother," he asserted, his voice resolute. "And one day, I will ensure Layla has even greater opportunities than I." Layla ran to him and hugged him tightly. Michael observed the unfolding scene in silence, a subtle smile playing on his lips. He knew he had made the right choice. "This is merely the genesis, Devon," he stated, rising to his feet, "and I eagerly anticipate witnessing the heights you will achieve." 3 months later, the Chicago Symphony Hall is packed to capacity. 1,500 members of the city's cultural elite, acclaimed music critics, and even a few familiar faces from Patricia Blackwell's party occupy the elegant red seats, all poised in eager anticipation of the performance that has become the talk of the town. Backstage, Devon Jackson adjusts his tie for the 10th time. A slight tremor runs through his hands, a telltale sign of nerves, despite his meticulous preparation. He is clad in an immaculate tuxedo, a gift from Michael Jordan, and his polished leather shoes gleam under the dressing room lights. "Take a deep breath, son," Elena Washington whispers, her hand gently caressing his hair with maternal tenderness. "You were born for this moment." She wears an elegant blue dress, also a gift from Michael, her eyes glistening with pride. Seated beside her in the dressing room is Layla Jackson, his 13-year-old younger sister, wearing a delicate white dress adorned with blue floral accents. Layla's gaze remains fixed on her brother, brimming with awe and fascination. "It's going to be all right, Dev," she says, attempting to project confidence, despite the slight tremor in her voice betraying her emotion. Devon bends down, takes his sister's hands and kisses her forehead. "Thank you, Layla, for everything. I'm here because of you." Just then, a theater staff member appears at the doorway. "Devon Jackson, 5 minutes to curtain." Michael Jordan enters immediately after, as commanding as ever, yet a paternal smile dispels any lingering tension in the room. "Remember what we talked about?" he asks, placing a hand on the young man's shoulder. "To play from the heart, not the ego," Devon replies, a nervous smile playing on his lips. "Precisely. And remember, you're not just playing for this audience," Michael continues. "You're playing for all young people like you, including for that little girl right there," he says, casting an affectionate gaze at Layla, "who one day will look at you and say, 'My brother showed me that anything is possible.'" Layla smiles and subtly dabs away a tear. Devon takes a deep breath and nods firmly. The moment had arrived. He strides through the theater's corridors, his steps resolute and assured. As he emerges from the side curtains, he is met by a thunderous ovation. 1,500 people instantly rise to their feet, their applause erupting even before he strikes a single key. He positions himself before the Steinway concert grand piano, ironically the same model as in Patricia's mansion, and takes a respectful bow. As he settles onto the bench, a profound silence descends. Devon poises his fingers over the keys and commences with a piece specially chosen for the evening. Bette Midler's "From a Distance," an instrumental rendition he personally arranged to narrate his journey. The notes cascade with both ethereal lightness and profound depth, as if each chord recounted a chapter of his life's narrative. His humble beginnings, the anguish of his father's passing, his mother's sacrifices, the daily struggle, public humiliation, and preeminently the forgiveness that liberated his soul. In the audience, Patricia Blackwell occupies a seat in the third row, with discreet tears tracing paths down her cheeks. She is not merely present to listen to music, she is there to witness her own redemption unfold before an assembly. Beside her, Robert firmly clasps her hand. Michael Jordan observes from backstage, his eyes gleaming with a paternal pride, as if Devon were his own progeny. He understands he is witnessing the genesis of something far more significant than a mere musical career. He is observing a potent symbol of transformation and hope coalesce. Elena watches from the front row, her hands clasped as if in prayer. Beside her, Layla follows every note with her gaze fixed on her brother, her fingers intertwined in her lap as if absorbing each chord into her very soul. Devon seamlessly transitions between classical and popular compositions throughout the hour-long performance. He renders Chopin with profound reverence, immerses himself in jazz as one celebrating their heritage, and concludes with an original composition titled "Amazing Grace in Chicago," a masterful fusion of the spirituality inherited from his grandmother and the vibrant rhythms of the city that embraced him. As the final notes reverberate through the theater, a 2-second hush precedes an explosive eruption of applause. Cries of "Bravo!" resound in a multitude of languages, critics furiously jot down notes, and even theater staff pause their duties to give a standing ovation. Devon rises and bows deeply. Tears stream down his face, yet his radiant smile illuminates the entire stage. He approaches the microphone. "Thank you," he utters, his voice choked with emotion, yet remarkably clear. "Thank you for reminding me that dreams know no address, that talent recognizes no color, and that sometimes life's greatest blessings arrive disguised as our most formidable challenges." The ovation reignites, even more fervent than before. Flowers are showered onto the stage. Recording contracts, tour invitations, and interview requests await backstage. Yet in that precise moment, Devon is simply a 23-year-old man who has remained steadfastly true to his essence, his family, and his intrinsic dignity. Michael Jordan backstage gazes with profound satisfaction. He knows his investment in the right individual has paid off. Devon is destined to be more than just a great artist. He is poised to become a voice for millions. And among that multitude, a little girl in a white dress in the front row smiles as if the world were unfurling before her very eyes. Patricia Blackwell, seated in the third row, watches in utter silence, as though every note Devon performed bore an immense weight on her shoulders. Just 3 months prior, she had designated him the target of a calculated cruelty, a power play, an act of public humiliation designed to mortify him before the elite. Yet within that opulent hall, what was meant to be a spectacle of derision transcended into the very night she bore witness to true greatness. Life, with its unfailing irony, imparted upon her a lesson that no title, no fortune, no influence could have circumvented. Before her very eyes, that young man whom she had attempted to ridicule was now celebrated as a genius, not merely for his undeniable talent, but for the profound dignity with which he met injustice. Devon Jackson did not just change his life. He rewrote it with courage, profound empathy, and magnanimity. He transmuted pain into music, prejudice into impetus, and the attempt at destruction into an act of personal resurrection. And there, before the very audience that had previously lauded her arrogance, Patricia had no choice but to learn. To learn that those who attempt to dim another's light almost invariably find themselves eclipsed. 3 months ago, Devon Jackson had been virtually invisible. Today, he stands as a living inspiration. And if this story resonated with you, subscribe to the channel, activate notifications, and share this video. For narratives such as this warrant being told and cherished.